was still seeing my Connecticut therapist on and off at this point. She was so different from Sue. Sue had been there for me during my transition, and most likely could have helped me throughout the succeeding years thereafter, but her job was now technically done. Not to mention that she was also 2 states away, and the whole phone therapy sessions wasn't exactly what I needed. Besides, she knew I wasn't a lesbian. Definitely bisexual, but we already knew that. Sue's specialty was helping people come out of the closet and maintain the HBSOC. If anything, I needed therapy to help realize that I was straight. Granted, my new therapist was also a lesbian. She was still picking me up at an entirely different point in my life, ultimately giving her an entirely different perspective on my issues. I tried attending the local gender groups in Connecticut, but even there I felt out of place. I was the only post-op, and it didn't make much sense in my going, at least not for the issues I was dealing with. It was almost awkward, being in a circle of people still coming to terms with themselves, while I was the only one working to figure out what life is about after the fact. There simply wasn't anyone I could relate to. I did, however, make one final trip to New Jersey to say goodbye to my old group. At least there, they had all watched me from the beginning. I was actually set to be a speaker. I guess they considered me a success, despite my only having completed the physical phase of the transition. There was still one hell of a world out there emotionally, mentally, and spiritually that I hadn't even imagined could exist yet, widely spread with experiences only accessible to those who have surpassed the physical test. Lastly, the reality of my debt was becoming a little too real at this point. In just 1 year, my change consumed nearly $75,000, give or take a few baht, and there wasn't even a house or a Ferrari to show for it. All I had was inner peace, which I guess you can't really put a price on, but still. The lack of anything to do at work only complicated things. I was now merely working to pay off a debt, rather striving towards a goal. In fact, I no longer had any goals. It was the strangest feeling. I had no relationships going on at the moment either, so it was a rather depressing outlook on life when it came down to it. I slightly remember seeing this one woman through a coworker whom I'd attempted a brief fling with. I think her name was Amy. All I remember is that she had a shaved head, which I thought was pretty cool. But even that only lasted a few short days. All there was an increasing sense of depression. I even contacted a local psychiatrist in case I needed to get on some sort of depression meds. I don't believe that if I'd taken my transition any slower, would I have not still had these same issues. There are simply some things which you cannot understand until you're faced with them. Subjects concerning the true inner workings of self within society and how to better fit into that role now interested me. The physical change was merely a roadblock which I first had to overcome in order to reach this plateau, and I believe the subsequent stage to be the maintaining of a functioning and healthy relationship, for it was the one and only thing that I consistently failed to get right. Whether with a guy or a girl, it ultimately didn't matter, for all I wanted was someone. So of all the flings I had after returning from Thailand, there was but one woman who really stuck with me. I think I'll call her Cat, short for Catalyst. She was going to be the last woman I'd ever date in a traditional sense. It's also a very fitting name, since when I met her, I just adopted a little calico kitten, while she herself had a cat of her own, a Maine Coon. So, Cat. My cat, her cat, cats everywhere. My kitten was a cat, named Samantha, after one of the coolest girls I ever dated. She was a fellow Sagittarian, totally into cars, weed, sex, and even other women. Unfortunately, though, two Sagittarians will usually cancel each other out, as they often need so much freedom that neither is ever really around for the other. Anywho, my kitten was adopted shortly after I returned from Thailand, and was also born in December, hence the name Samantha, my little Sagittarian. And Kat, as in my soon-to-be girlfriend, was another Virgo. Uh-oh. A dark-haired woman very close to my own age. She was a lotta butchy, but always seemingly happy. She did sport one hell of a temper, though. Gee, Virgo. There's a surprise. But she was still very social and a good partner. She often dressed like a guy, acted like a guy, talked like a guy, and was outspoken like a guy, but she always somehow remained a woman, or at least while I was with her. I was quite content doing the whole femme routine, while she was always happiest when flaunting her ruggedness. Kat decided to initiate the acquaintance by coming to the Hermits, where I was still living with Christine. I was thrilled to have the first date coming to me for once. At the time, I think I was still reading lesbian romance novels, and as I recall, there were several scattered across my bed when she got there, so at least that made for a good icebreaker. We were planning to spend the night at our friend's house. They were having a small get-together, and Kat thought that it would make a safe environment for us to get acquainted. The night was off to a pretty good start. Everyone seemed to get along. However, it's usually not until bedtime that things get interesting. For once, though, it's not what you think. By the night's end, there were people passed out all over right where they'd been drinking, except for this one guy, whom was sitting on the floor in front of us, watching TV. Being the only females and the only couple, Kat and I were lucky enough to get the futon. All was fine and dandy until the guy watching TV began getting on our nerves with his channel surfing, so I grabbed the extra remote off the nearby table and turned it off on him. I'm guessing he thought Kat and I were sleeping, but we were really under the blanket laughing our asses off. Every time I turned the TV off or changed the channel on him, he'd bug out a little more, oblivious as to what I was doing from beneath the sheets. This went on for about 5 minutes, until he started making a big commotion and waking up the whole house with his molesting of the TV wires. He eventually just broke down and started yelling like crazy that the entertainment center was haunted. It was just the thing Kat and I needed to bond over. We both liked to fuck with people. There was only one thing left to do now before investing my emotions, and that was tell her about my change. Sometimes, you're just able to sense what a person's true intentions are when they initially contacted you. Kat was looking for a close friend and a relationship, whereas the teacher was looking for comfort after losing her longtime lover. The Coke couple was looking for a third to share between them, as they had since grown tired of each other. Everyone has an agenda, and sometimes you get lucky and meet someone with the same desires as you. Personally, I was looking for companionship, but an even better answer could be that I was looking for what I was looking for, because even I no longer knew. There was always that ever-present search for my soulmate, or maybe I just hated being alone. Kat took the news pretty well, actually seemingly very interested. She told me she didn't give a shit, and then we fucked. You didn't really think we were going to take things slow, did you? She was on my level, and we were both out to have a good time above all else.